Well, Biden's giving a speech now. It says that we are going to re-engage with Europe, like Donald Trump cut all of our ties. I think what Donald Trump was doing over in Europe was fine. Good with me. You know, we don't need your treaties. That's fine. We're just going to do our thing. And by the way, if you want NATO to exist, I don't really know why it does right now, but if you want it to exist, we're fine with that, but pay your share. I think those are great things. Oh, no, those are horrible.
I, for one, believe we should be in all sorts of treaties on meaningless topics.
Right.
I want to make sure that we set ourselves into rules designed by the Europeans to control our climate. And even though it won't actually make any difference whatsoever, even if fully implemented, which it's not being fully
It is really good because there's a new thing out from the UN.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
great.
Yeah. This is according to the Associated Press. Humans are making Earth a broken and increasingly unlivable planet through climate change, biodiversity, and pollution. Now, biodiversity loss. So the world must make dramatic changes to society, economics, and daily life. It's according to the United Nations. Now, the United Nations report, when they line all this out, they say that this is all going to be working through the United Nations Sustainability Project, which is the 2030 plan, used to be Agenda 21. It's still going, gang, and it's going gangbusters. All of this is in parallel with what we've been telling you about with the Great Reset, all of it. When the Associated Press asked leaders around the world what they thought of this, the AP said they were surprised how many said, oh, yes, this is definitely going to happen. Now, the UN report tells that, we're going to kill an eighth of all species of animals on the planet. Soon, we're going to go up 3.5 degrees in the next 100 years, which is news to me. And our oceans are all dying. So we have to act right now. And they say this is the last call. Now, I thought we had the last call in like 2004, but no. This
one's the one?
This is the one.
Okay.
We have no more time, and we have to do all of it at once. We can't just take it a piece at a time.
Of course not.
All of it has to be done.
It's too important.
Right.
Existential threat.
So it is calling now for a change to how governments tax. So now taxes are going to be decided on what is your impact on the climate and society.
Gee, this sounds like, I feel like I've heard a proposal like this recently, maybe
Really?
tied to the Great Reset.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Well, I think it's only fair that if, you are hurting the planet, that you pay more tax because, you have to offset that carbon. The Earth is crying out, please offset the carbon. Please pay money for the carbon.
And you know what? Mother Earth, she's a nag.
She's
constantly whining.
nagging.
Stop using SUVs.
But also, Stu, we have a right to talk, but are we really doing good or are we doing harm to social justice?
I hope there's someone who can judge that for us.
Well, there will be, and
good.
we'll get taxed on it. So if you are not working for the good of the community as outlined by your government and the global governments, then you're going to have to pay a new tax.
Oh, good.
Also, they are saying that we must change how nations value economic output. So economic output, it's not your gross national product. What is the product you're putting out? Are you doing good for society? Are you finding equity? And are you doing things that are good for the environment?
I've been hearing that a lot lately. There's a proposal about stakeholder capitalism, which also, by the way, is part of the Great Reset. Yeah,
Isn't that weird?
Which is strange.
Yeah, that's
I've been hearing
strange.
this quite a bit.
Also, how power is generated. We're all going to have to understand that the Green New Deal, that's not what they're calling it, just a green power, must be implemented right now.
You can really sell that to Texas at this moment. They just are
They love that idea.
with windmills
Love
right
that.
now.
Yeah. Let me just, before I give you the rest of what they want to change, they're only asking for a few things, okay? And they're asking that this is our last chance. We must do this right now. We have to change what governments tax, how nations value economic output, how power is generated, the way people get around, the way people fish and farm, as well as what they eat.
So basically all aspects of our society.
But you have freedom on every other place.
What was left after?
Everything else.
Because, I mean, you said all the energy, so really any activity would be monitored under this policy.
Well, not your caloric.
Speech.
Well, caloric, yes. Caloric is also regulated.
Yep, food.
So speech is going to be taxed if you're not really, for social justice.
Mm-hmm. It seems it seems like all you're describing here is a total.
All I am describing, and stop taking it out of context.
Okay.
All this is asking for is changing the way governments tax to include what is called ESG. That's it.
What's
just hit the ESG standards.
Well, ESG sounds like something good. I
Right?
mean, it's a
EKG
standard.
is good.
Right.
What's an ESG?
Right.
It's environmental, social, and government. So it's
Just hit
it's environmental justice, social justice, and the things the government says you got to do too.
You sound like you're describing a reset of sorts, and I would say a large one, a large reset, a big reset.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm only saying change the way governments tax.
Okay.
Make a stakeholder share where the business
Not like shareholders, but more like stakeholders. That's more important.
You change the way they do business, and they're going to want to do business like this. How nations value economic output, how power is generated, the way people get around, fish, farm, and as well as what they eat. What's the problem?
I mean,
all the rest is for you.
It just sounds so good, and it's so just arbitrarily tied to that large reset thing we've been talking about. It is amazing that this stuff, you were talking about this earlier about how these things bubble under and people make up their minds. And it's a small percentage of people at first. And then eventually an event happens and it pushes a lot of those people who hadn't put a lot of thought into it over to the other side because they say, well, what are we going to do about this, right? Like, what are we going to do about this problem? We need more of X, Y, and Z. It's what AOC is trying to do with this Texas situation,
Correct.
Right? This just proves we need the Green New Deal, right? Everything just proves whatever they want is what is needed.
And if you look at social media, you look at what the media is pushing, you hear that. You don't hear the pushback that this system in Texas appears to be corrupt and incompetent, and they didn't weather strip anything.
Really, yeah. I mean, because it is more complicated than just windmills. We keep harping on the windmills. I mean, the bigger problem has been natural gas, but it's all tied to this weatherization thing.
Yeah, they didn't do what they were supposed to do because of COVID. They had virtual meetings. Virtual weather stripping. I love that.
Virtual, well, because they do spot checks as part of the program.
Right.
And they only went to 16% of all of the places they were supposed to go. And when I say they went there via Zoom. They were just like, okay, hold your phone up to the part where you weatherized.
Yeah.
It was that bad. And of course, that causes a huge, huge problem that we're all paying for now. So it's not, it isn't as simple as just, whining about windmills, though that is a big part of it. In Texas, it's a big part of it. Wind and solar have underperformed through this when Texans needed power most. It's not a surprise. But it was bigger than that. It's a giant failure, and it always ties back to the government. And now you see what the government's doing. Some good politicians, some bad politicians, all pointing fingers at each other.
Well, look at this. January 6th. We now have serious people talking about truth commissions. They are saying the Capitol Police are saying they need the fence up around the Capitol now until September. They are now saying that the National Guard, they're going to release them, but not all of them. There will be a contingent that stays there in Washington, D.C. all the time now. And that's because of January 6th. You don't think that if something big would happen, you don't think that they would put draconian laws down? And here's the problem. These things are already agreed to by major corporations.
Yeah.
These major corporations are not freedom's friend. You would think they would be. Why would they want to do this? Why would they possibly want more taxes and more regulation? Because they're helping write it right now. It's not going to hurt Coca-Cola. It's going to hurt, Diet Right or whatever one of those off-brands are that are not sitting at the table making the regulations now.
Yeah, when the big corporations work with the government, they do their best to keep their competition down, right? As anyone would. I mean, it's very natural.
That doesn't make any sense. Why would a company want more regulations? What is Facebook running a campaign on right now? They are actually running an advertising campaign saying, Washington, we want you to regulate us. Mm-hmm. That doesn't make sense, does it? Unless you know you're going to be at the table writing the legislation.
And, for all you've been saying this for so long. It's, you've been on repeat since, 2008 or something.
Thank you.
Basically, CD track 4, the Glenn Beck speech about don't give them an excuse. Look, January 6th, there was much more death, much more violence in the Black Lives Matter rallies, much more property damage. All of that is completely true. However, you give them one excuse, and it was a big one. January 6th was really, really bad.
It was bad.
But for the people who have been arguing, we just need to burn this down, we need to fight, we need to stop listening, we need to break the rules, we need to do all these things, look at what has come out of just that one day. You're talking about a permanent National Guard contingency in Washington, D.C. They're talking about permanent fencing around the houses where our representatives work, and truth commissions and terrorist warnings and justifications
a stand down of the Pentagon to weed out Trump supporters.
And a justification for every little dumb thing they've been trying to push through for the past decade. And they got it done because a few hundred people one day did something awful. And some of the people were in there like, who knows? Some of the people were outside and there was no violence by a lot of the people who were there. And thousands of people were there and didn't even know any of this happened. But it doesn't matter. You can't give them an excuse.
If you haven't read The Overton Window, my novel, The Overton Window, and The Eye of Moloch, it's happening right now. It's happening right now. Read those novels. I wrote them so they could, right?
Jeez, thinking back at the plot.
Think about the last part of The Overton Window and the beginning of The Eye of Moloch. It's happening right now. Read those books. You can find them on Amazon.